Hey, what's up? This was recorded after the FA Cup final. Rest of this video was recorded last night. I still totally stand by it. I just wanted to put this in there to make sure that you guys knew that I watched the FA Cup final. And I don't think Ten Hag's a bad coach. Came in with a good game plan. Obviously said he made a huge mistake on the first goal. The second goal was sick. They executed their game plan and they beat a team that basically nobody else was able to beat for the last couple of months of the season, except for Real Madrid in the Champions League. But does that even really count? It's a huge win, and Ten Hag now has more trophies at Manchester United than Mikel Arteta has at Arsenal so far, which is excellent banter era nonsense. But no, I think the rest of this video still checks out, so enjoy it. See ya. On a big day today. Instead of streaming Football Manager like I normally do, I streamed Planet Zoo. We built a gorilla habitat. We built a meerkat habitat with aardvarks in it, obviously. Like, what else are you going to put in there? We built a habitat with capybaras and llamas that the guests in the zoo could walk around in. So I'm in a very peaceful state of mind. And with that in mind, I'm going to try and approach this topic with a lot of zen, because it's about Manchester United. Now, I've been accused of being a Manchester United hater a lot. It's one of the most consistent things about my brand. I think it's just because I happen to be doing this while Manchester United happens to be not very good and kind of a banter club at the moment. But it's the breaking news reported by The Guardian that apparently Erik ten Hag is going to be fired. No matter what happens in the FA Cup final this weekend, Erik ten Hag is going to be, yeet, like right out the window, right? He's going to get tossed like a salad, like a really nice tableside salad. Even if he beats Manchester City 85-0, it's not going to matter. The Guardian's reporting that this decision's already been made, specifically Jacob Steinberg. Just in case this happens not to be true, I'd like to not get blamed for it, right? This is Jacob Steinberg for The Guardian that's making the report, and as you can see, it got a lot of attention. 1.6 million views on that tweet alone, and here's the whole write-up, the whole story about it on the Guardian website. Erik ten Hag getting fired has sparked this giant debate, right? A lot of people love Erik ten Hag. Manchester United fans love Erik ten Hag. An equal number, perhaps even more, hate him and think he's not very good. He has been involved in multiple controversies, like the one around Jadon Sancho, who is going to start in a Champions League final this year. Things just haven't worked out for Erik ten Hag. But what is true is that he's been there for a couple of years now, and he's been able to spend a lot of money. And in most matches, he's managing the majority of the players on the field are players that he brought in. Players like Antony that just aren't doing very well, right? They might have been great prospects at one point, but Ajax is laughing all the way to the bank with those sorts of transfers. And he's stuck now with a lot of those players on his team because they're taking such high wages, like Harry Maguire, where they can't move them. Now, Harry Maguire's rebounded and turned into a good player again. He's somehow battled through the amount of hate and slander that was getting thrown his way, which will never cease to amaze me, by the way. Incredible turnaround by Harry Maguire. But the fact that they couldn't move Harry Maguire for all that time is a huge indication of the problem that a lot of these big clubs are running into, that once you sign somebody, you're kind of stuck with them. You can't overhaul the roster the way that smaller clubs can, because you're paying them so much. And there just aren't a lot of clubs in the world that are paying the types of wages that Manchester United is paying. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that when you make a deal, you have to get it right. And Manchester United just doesn't seem to have gotten it right enough of the time. I think Erik ten Hag getting fired, no matter what happens in the FA Cup, makes complete sense to me. Now, obviously, I'm going to tell you why. That's why we're here. You see, Erik ten Hag was appointed basically to go through the offseason before the 2022-2023 season, so last year, and then go through it again. So he's 2 full years as the Manchester United head coach. Now, there is one incredibly damning fact that you can drop in right off the top. From last year, which was his first year in charge, to this year, Manchester United is 15 points worse than last year. Now, there were a bunch of potential reasons for this, right? The injuries were overwhelming, right? The competition shifted. You had a more confident Arsenal. You had a resurgent Aston Villa bullying its way to the top. But we're talking about Manchester United here, the club that unironically up until like 2 years ago had players referring to it as the biggest club in the world. The first club to pull off the famous treble. The club where Cristiano Ronaldo and David Beckham were playing when I was growing up. They were the sexy club. They were the cool club. They were the unkillable giants. They were what Manchester City is now in competitive terms. Look, I don't want to have the rest of that conversation, but I'm saying competitive terms, they're the big kid on the block, right? And if you're in a title race with Manchester United, you thought you were going to lose. right? You thought you were going to lose that title race. They had Sir Alex Ferguson. There was there was a lot of continuity in the team, in the decision-making process, in giving opportunities to youngsters, and there were legends everywhere up and down the pitch. And that's just not the case anymore. It could be the case again, but it's not the case right now. And instead of going in the right direction, they've firmly gone in the wrong direction from 2 years ago to this year. Or from last year to this year. They've just 15 points worse. We're looking at a Manchester United team that has a negative goal difference, right? Newcastle finished on the same number of points, but at a plus 23 goal difference. That wears on you over the course of the season. Whether you're a fan, you're a player, you're a coach, every Manchester United win is razor thin, and some of the losses are fat. That's a 24 goal difference over the course of just 38 games between Newcastle and Manchester United. What that indicates to me, rather ironically, is that Erik ten Hag might have actually gotten the best out of this team, right? Anytime you're winning by razor-thin margins and when you lose, you get blown out, you can sometimes attribute that to the manager, right? Where the manager is doing a really good job of squeezing the talent out of this team. The problem is that Manchester United is not Brighton or Leicester City or even Aston Villa. Manchester United has the resources and spends more money, like if you're talking net spend, than every other club in the Premier League, right? So this is not a position that Manchester United, it's not a position that Man U should be in. And when you have Erik ten Hag so involved in the transfers and perhaps telling the people that are making the actual making the calls and participating in the negotiations who he wants to go after, and he has been involved in that for 2 summers now, it's just not working. This is the sort of thing, if Manchester United actually accepts a negative goal difference, missing out on Europe entirely in your second season of management. In your first season, I can buy it, right? It takes a while to overhaul the squad, as we were just talking about. You get the best out of the team, but now, when you've got the majority of your guys in place, if you're Manchester United, you just can't be accepting this level of performance, especially considering it's actually a significant shift down in terms of where Manchester United finished points-wise compared to last season, or just league-wise. See, I was curious, right? When was the last time Manchester United finished at least 8th? 1990. I wasn't alive. And now I'm sitting here with a mustache on and a whole ass YouTube channel talking to you about stuff. I wasn't alive the last time. I'm not even close. I was born in 96. You can do the math yourself. 1990 was the last time Manchester United finished below 8th. Actually, they didn't even finish at 8th. They've been 7th or higher in every league season since 1990. Now, there is one caveat that if you are an Erik ten Hag supporter, like ride or die, you will try and hang your hat on. And that's that Sir Alex Ferguson was actually the coach of that 1990 team that ended up finishing 13th. But Sir Alex Ferguson had been in charge for 3 years at that point. But I think we can all, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, acknowledge that was a completely different world. The Premier League didn't even exist yet, and to be entirely fair to Sir Alex Ferguson, the team he took over was in a free fall and was well into the bottom half of the table to begin with. And so he had a much larger project that even Erik ten Hag had stepping in at Manchester United. So the fact that he happened to have a blip and finish 13th, even though he did win the FA Cup that season, which of course is something that Erik ten Hag could pull off this weekend, even though that he won the FA Cup that season, finishing 13th in 1990 was not enough to get him fired. Granted, he was definitely on the hot seat, right? That's part of Sir Alex Ferguson's origin story, is that, he almost got fired and then he finally got it turned around. Well, it was 1990 that almost got him fired. And he had taken over a team that was much worse than the team Erik ten Hag took over, right? And he was taking over a team that wasn't riding off the type of success Sir Alex Ferguson had created. Right? He created a club that was completely different than the one he took over. For example, the club that Sir Alex Ferguson had just taken over hadn't won the top division, the top division in England, since 1967. And it was 1990. That's 23 years since they'd last won the top division. Erik ten Hag's taking over a team that a decade ago was arguably the best team in the world, right? And is still one of the teams that expects to be able to compete against every team that they play against. Right now, obviously, Manchester United has not been as good in the last decade, but the team that Sir Alex Ferguson took over was completely different. I just wanted to address that argument because I know some people will point that out and say ten Hag deserves more time because Sir Alex Ferguson got more time. It's not the same situation. It's apples and oranges, and this bald orange just should be fired. It doesn't mean he's a bad coach. He was clearly great at Ajax. Clearly, when he is able, a few things go his way. as the case with a lot of the majority of players and the majority of coaches, if a few things go their way, they can be great. But I think it's also clear that Erik ten Hag at Manchester United is not working up to the expectation of the club or the coach. Erik ten Hag believed that it was going to go better than this, and the club believed that it was going to go better than this. They thought they'd gotten their Pep Guardiola or their Jurgen Klopp that was going to guide the club back up. They just finished a season with a negative goal difference. Rather strangely, Manchester United also had a negative 1 goal difference in 1990 when it finished 13th. So that's another great indication that finishing 8th with a -1 goal difference is actually a pretty significant surprise here. But you guys know, I'm more than happy to shit on Manchester United or anybody else if I think what they are doing is stupid. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe is certainly not somebody that has sold me on his ability to run a club. We made a whole video on the main YouTube channel about how Sir Jim Ratcliffe has really struggled to run the couple of clubs that him and Ineos have bought so far. Like, it's been weird and tons of turnover, and it hasn't been good. But that doesn't mean that this decision is bad. Now, there is obviously a leak, and the fact that this decision came out before the final is stupid. I think somebody should have had, not as many people should have been notified that they were leaving, or that a move was going to be made until after the FA Cup final. Like, I've never been a coach or a president of a club, so I don't necessarily know what the polite way to do this is, but I would imagine you wait until after the match, or maybe you try and tell the coach out, like, before the match, and maybe the leak came from Erik ten Hag's camp. I have no idea, and we'll probably never know. But the fact that all this news is breaking before the final is going to create a spectacle this weekend, a weird spectacle, because it does appear that all of this news is correct. And all of the people that will get upset about the firing of Ten Hag just don't make sense to me. Because if you are happy with getting 15 points worse this season, I don't care how many injuries there were, right? You had fit players out there, and you were only missing all of your center backs for, I think it was the last 4 or 5 games. I can't remember exactly, but it was like the last month or so of the season where they didn't have any center backs. Now that's a whole different ball of wax. But this was a bad season. Last year's season showed promising signs that couldn't be capitalized on at all. And it makes complete sense to me to want to move on from that, especially when there seem to be a couple of young hotshot managers out there, whether it be Kieran McKenna or one of the guys that's doing incredible work in Germany. I'm not talking about Xabi Alonso. I'm talking about some of the other guys that are making some magic happen. Like, example, the coach of Stuttgart. There are good young coaches out there. And if Manchester United can try to land one of them, or if they can bait in somebody that I can't think of to try and get this boat turned around, then things might be great again. But Erik ten Hag, it's not been enough. And I think Manchester United will be very successful again. I think Erik ten Hag will be successful again. But I don't think it's going to be together. And clearly, based off this reporting, it's never going to be together. And that makes complete sense to me. See you guys.